Hey, footy fans, welcome to the Point of Difference Rugby League podcast. I'm your host, Dave, and today we're going back in the day. I'm sure you all know him. He's the South, Manly Seagulls and Tigers legend. It's the one and only Craig Field. How you going, brother?
Good, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
Oh, mate, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. You know, I had like a ton of rugby league cards as a kid, and your face was on a lot of them. And I'm pretty sure I had like two or three posters of you on my bedroom wall, among many other great names. And it's pretty awesome to meet you in person, man. It's amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate that, mate. It's nice to hear.
Oh, no worries. So, what are you up to, man? The last I heard, you were driving a forklift, which is what I do for a living for a big dairy company over here. So, what are you up to now, man?
Yeah, I'm doing a mix of things: driving a forklift, driving a hoist, working for Hutchins Building. So it's different, but it's reality, isn't it? It's back into life, and I enjoy it. Being on the site with lots of different people and different characters. They all love their footy, so it always makes the days easy to get by.
Yeah, man, it's like that at work. We all like our footy. Some like rugby, some like league. You know, living in Christchurch, Canterbury, big rugby stronghold over here, but lots of league as well. So lots of banter. It's good fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
always
man.
enjoyed my times over there. I've always enjoyed my time in New Zealand. We've gone over there and played for the clubs I've played for. So yeah, it's a great place.
That is a so right, man. Let's rewind the clock. Craig Field, as a young fella, where'd you grow up, and what was life like for you? You know, growing up as a young fella.
Yeah, grew up in the eastern suburbs, Paddington, the right end, not the gay end. Grew up. My mum and dad and my brother and my sister. We live in a three-story terrace in Paddington, and just started playing rugby league in the local area. Paddington, it's a Centennial Park for the Paddington Colts. A couple of other players have been there that made NRLs, Jim Dimmick and Brian Fletcher. So we're all from the same club. So grew up in that environment, and very very rugby league orientated family.
Awesome, man. So where did that? I suppose that's what the rugby league, passion came from, and what got you into playing, like being surrounded by rugby league and in general.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously coming through the juniors and going to school with all the guys I played with, and our families all become friends, and a lot of them come from Bondi or Randwick or Clovelly, and just there was a very strong back them days. Eastern Suburbs Comp had juniors, and there was a lot of family orientated, and all the guys that got on well seemed to do a lot of things in general growing up, whether it be nippers or scouts or whatever it was that one of the kids was doing, someone else in the team would be following, and it was good times back then. And there was a lot of we all sort of grew up in that sort of hotel environment too, where the parents would all go and have a beverage. So I think that we've caught a couple of their trades.
Nothing wrong with that, mate. Mate. So, what was it about the game and when you started playing in your younger days that attracted you to keep going back? Taking on the big boys every week.
I think just obviously like I said, growing up in that environment and then seeing all our world players, young fellas, 5 and 6 years of age, and then we'd go to Waverley Oval up and watch the fathers and all that play. So I think that sort of instilled all of us what we wanted to do. The environments back then was family and having good times, and then football was probably the most that brought everyone together. So. And obviously, as I got older, playing a few junior reps and that, then all of a sudden being East Ball boy, that really got me right into rugby league. Like being there every weekend on the sideline, carrying a ball or a sand bucket, and seeing the champions that went around.
So, who are some of the players on that east side that you were, ball boying for?
Well, there's a couple of Kiwis. Hugh McGahn was captain.
Oh, mate, he's
back in the day when I ball boyed in the early 80s and or mid 80s, and there was Hugh McGahn, Dean Bell, Brad Tessman. There was a few Olsen come one year, I'm pretty sure.
Oh,
wow. But Russell Fairfax was the coach, and then Arthur Beetson was in my time of being a ball boy. I probably got away with being a ball boy a little bit longer because I was so small. So I think I was a ball boy up until about 15, and then 2 years later I was playing against them.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Was Kurt Sorensen there for that season when you were?
Yeah, sorry, they were. Both Sorensens were there. Yeah, they were there. They were there for, I think it was 85 or 84.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they were there. So, I think they were there. they were definitely there. And yeah, there was a few that went through there, like Bondi Junction, that Bolter. They've always that Bondi area always creates them Kiwis. They love to live there. It's a home away from New Zealand.
Oh, awesome, man. So, were you playing halfback when you came up through the grades, and like, was that your natural position?
Yeah, that's obviously from the day one. I was always wearing number 7. So yeah, that's sort of more or less. A couple of times when you played up a grade or something like that, you might throw on the wing or what have you, or into hooker. But being a smaller bloke, it was always sort of something that I learned to get in. Wanted to play, and from that the day I put the jersey on, I didn't want anything else.
Awesome. So what was the teams you played for when you came up through the rep grades? Was that South Juniors, or like, because you said you're in eastern suburbs, or because where
Yeah,
did the
well,
South Juniors sort of start?
this is how it all happened. Obviously, being East Ball Boy and being involved with the like the ARL or the rugby league back then, New South Wales Rugby League it was. Yeah, I just went through, and obviously football was my number one priority. I didn't even really concentrate too much at school. As at the big league, looking out who was playing and what team, and knew every player, and that was my world. And so as I come up to, like, I played junior reps with Roosters. We had Matthew Shield, that was under 15s, I think, or 14s, and then SG Ball, and then after that, I tried out because I was asked a couple of times to play A grade in the local comp, and only being a 16-year-old kid, it was a big thing probably back then, and they were pretty tough, from my memory of, like, some of the teams you play. So obviously the coach asked my dad, and my dad said, yeah, if he wants to. And then I thought I'd just thought about it, and I said, I'll just try out for the Roosters first. So I went and tried out for the Roosters. It was at Caltex Park, which is Canola's old ground, and played lower grades. Played a trial against them and went really well. Then they gave me a couple of minutes in reserve grade and played really, really well. And all the guys that had been a ball boy previously that were there had said, oh, you're a big chance of making it. Anyway, cut the story short, got told by Mark Murray, who was the A grade coach at the time, or the first grade coach at the time, Roosters, just said, mate, you're a bit small. We haven't got plan. We can't fit you in. So back then, them days, you got graded. So it wasn't so much you got a contract, you got graded. And then obviously players would then get, as they play, whether on match payments or a sign-on fee or what have you, depending on your ability. That's how it works. So I sort of got the shits and, was a bit heartbroken not being an East Junior and all that sort of stuff. I went over and played a year at with South, and I ended up trying out with South a week later. And then I ended up getting graded with South, and they just in '89 had just been minor premiers and just got knocked out by that game with Canberra. Anyway, so I got over there and then got graded. Obviously, I didn't get in the first team, in the 21s, so they sent me back to the local comp. So I went back to Jersey Flegg, and so I went back to Jersey Flegg and I played a trial. It was a trial for South. I only done 1 or 2 trains. I was pretty nervous about going over to South because while I really had enjoyed the Roosters competition, but South had a stigma of tough and these blokes are mad and that. Well, so anyway, in the shower and that after we played, I played all right. I didn't do nothing too special from my memory. But I'm in the shower and the next minute this bloke jumps in the shower with me. I'm thinking, what's going on here, mate? Like, I know I'm from Paddington, but it's not my game. Yeah, so it was Natty Wood. Yeah. Well, Natty was just taking the piss, and he just jumped in. He was just having a heckle just to see how I'd react. And go, what are you doing, mate? Who are you going to play for? Because back in them days, you play for your rep side on the Saturday, like your Jersey Flegg, and then play for your club side on the Sunday. Anyway, I guess come and play for – I was going to play for Mascot because I had family ties in the South Comp that were Mascot. And then Natty was at Alexandra Rovers, and because he just straight away we hit it off, and to this day we're best mates. And I said, what can you do? I've got to play with you now, mate. Now you're in the shower with me. I'll have to play for you. And we've been lifelong friends ever since. But so we went back. I went back and I played the flag with South that year, and Natty was there and a few other mates, and and played for Rovers also on the Sunday. So we'd play footy on the Saturday, and then go and have a party and drink and all that sort of carry on like young blokes do. And we just became very close, and many funny stories there. But then we go play for Rovers on the Sunday, and that year we end up winning the C grade, and I end up getting a chance to play on grand final day in the A grade. So I won 2 premierships in one day. So it was a big year that year because during that course of the year too, I got called into grade. so when the flag was over, I got called back into grade, and obviously sat on the bench a couple of weeks in 21s, and then I got a run, and then all of a sudden, then I went into reserve grade and played the last couple of games in reserve grade. And then the last game, third last game or second last game it was, South were playing St George at Cogra Oval, and Tugger Coleman, who's a legend of the club, and a good friend of mine, he got hurt. So I actually got the opportunity to play first grade at 17. So
wow,
and I remember that day, mate. And it's embarrassing to say, but I look back at it and I laugh. But I remember like when George Pickens announced it, no one really said anything. But Mario Fennick was captain at the time. He goes, I think he more or less said, "Are you for real putting this bloke in the team?" Like I would have been 69 kilos wringing wet. Anyway, so we played that day with some legends of South. David Boyle, Michael Neal, Mick Andrews, Phil Blake, just the list went on. Like the team, some great players, Les Davidson, it was just unreal. And I had that opportunity to play that day. Obviously, I didn't contribute much, but just to have that opportunity, that's something that they can't take away from me, that I played at 17 and also with them legends. So, and that was the start of the journey for me.
That's amazing, man, to be called up so young and like not just at any old time, but you just rattled off literally a list of names I had written down to ask you what was it like going to training, once you got into grade, with all these legends. You literally nailed off every name I'd written down there. Now, what was it like, when you did start training proper with South Sydney? How did it all work? Did you all train together, the different grades, or how did you approach that as a young fella?
Yeah, well, back in the day, it was totally different. I don't know how they really work too much today. I've been to a couple of places which we can talk about, like Manly doing a bit of a talk to players. But back in them days, on the Tuesday, you'd have club training. There was none of the recovery like they do today. There was recovery would have been as many schooners or pots or middies you could drink. But and then you train on Tuesday. Back then we were working and then playing. So So I just remember always hanging around at training, and we train as a club on Tuesday and do fitness and all that stuff. Then you break up, and then they announce the teams in the old sheds at Redfern Oval, and it was great memories actually to think that that's where you come back, where we come from. And I think that's like while they deserve everything they get these days, but they're a bit sport, because if they knew what we had to go through back in the days, and it was it was a great thing to be able to go through, and it's a privilege, I reckon. But and the memories just flow back as you get older. You can all you can do is look back at the good times, and that was one of them. But so I'd hang around a lot when I first got up there, and even when I wasn't getting picked or I was on the bench, even though after I'd played that one game in first grade, I'd just kick the ball around. I'd see A grade training, and then sometimes George or Frank Curry, the coach, I can't remember too much, but they'd say, "Oh, just come here and feed the ball for us." And the back line would be there, and they'd be standing, they'd be freezing at Redfern Oval, and they were practicing a move that they were coming up against the Tigers. And what they would do was the two front rowers, they wouldn't bind, and the second row would be loosened up with Les Davidson. And the tactic was back then was to take Benny out, because he was such a genius player. So he'd loosen the first knock on and first scrum. They just try and take him out of the game with the front row and the hooker splitting, and Bundy, Les Davidson coming through and cleaning him up. Well, it was funny because I was standing in the freezing cold, but I was excited to be involved. And I'm feeding the ball, and they're just doing it. And George is going, "You're not getting him. You're not getting him. Get Benny." Like he was holding the pad. George in the scrum it was, and he's hitting it anyway. Just a fond memory, like this is how they used to play back then, because that was a way of taking a player out, and they got away with it. Like today, like
so good.
So they were just the little things, and then obviously all the guys around the South Sydney area who are lifelong friends of mine now. That just good times. And we sort of struggled for a few years South after that, but they've sort of, it's like every club, they go up and down.
That's right. It all goes in cycles. Like South has been on top for a while, been in the grand final ongoing. Now they're going through some real struggles. It's unbelievable to see. I pegged them to be back in the 8 this year, and I couldn't be more wrong. They're struggling.
Yeah, well, obviously, playing for 3 clubs, I sort of don't try it, but South, obviously, I've got a big spot for South, and being there, giving me the opportunity that East didn't give me, I'm very grateful, and that's probably why I've got, I support South a little bit more than the other 2 clubs. But also, I got to captain them. Just the frustrating part, I think it is that sometimes with with rugby league players, they go older and they still want to be involved in that. And, like you sometimes you don't really seem that's one club that doesn't seem to get around their older players, or they just have a certain number of people they always invite to things, which is a bit sad. But anyway, still support them. And like I said, they're going through a lot of rough patch this year for a lot of reasons. I mean, we could be here for hours talking about it, but I think they have, like every club goes through, they've got a few injuries, and I think the pressure's really been put on from that, having all these players that aren't available to play the top grade.
Yeah. Just totally off the top of my head, how amazing. Well, first, how sad was it when they got axed from the competition? But how amazing was it to see them build from being, belted every week to winning the grand final in 2014? That was with Sam Burgess bleeding and broken face and crying. Amazing scenes.
Yeah, obviously, well, straight on Sam Burgess, I think he's one of the greatest players, with Craig Coleman and Mario. And there's a lot of them, but I think he will come, in my top of my list in the top 5. He's definitely up there. And that was great times, because we also obviously, like when I first took over the captaincy, Dean Skiffaletti hurt himself, and we had a successful year in '94 where we won like 8 or 9 games on the trot or something, and we just fell short, probably just inexperience. But and we won the Tooheys Challenge. We beat Broncos. Yeah. So that was sort of like, for a long time, the last thing that South had won for a while. And I remember in '96. Alan Jones calling me in and saying, "Oh, look, mate, I think you should look elsewhere." And I never wanted to leave South, and this is the truth from my point of view, because everybody's got their own versions, but unless you're involved in the room, you don't really know. But I'll say my version. So I get called in, and I'm captain, and quite often I'd meet with Alan about what was going on with the team, and what was going on, like with everything we were doing, because he was like the football manager and Ken Shine was the coach in '96. So anyway, this one time he calls me up there and says, "Oh, look, I don't think we're going to lose the Leeds club. We're going to struggle to financially stay in the comp. You should start. You're a good player. Like, he always did give me the rap that I could play, but we never ever saw eye to eye a lot of times. But and he just said to me, you should be looking elsewhere. And so obviously, because I was playing well, and I probably got a lot more raps than I deserved out of all the players that used to really, put in so much, and I'd get a lot being the captain or being the halfback. So I started looking elsewhere. My manager, Wayne Beavis, and spoke to about 8 clubs. And anyway, just on that, like, this is another true story, that this is how the things work out, like in rugby league behind the scenes, which I'm sure everyone knows, a little scandal or whatever, or rumour and that. So Wayne Beavis tells me, "Oh, yeah, mate, Bob Fulton's interested, right? No worries." So I obviously got overawed and signed with Manly, without speaking to the other 7 clubs.
Okay.
So I signed with Manly. Alan Jones is involved in it. He's more or less telling me to go to Manly. Blah, blah, blah. He's an Australian coach. You're a future Australian player, all this stuff. And I never made it. But, so I signed. Next minute, Wayne's ringing me up and saying, "Oh, we need to go and have lunch with this bloke. We need to go have dinner with this bloke." And I'm thinking to myself, I've already signed, mate. Why am I going to St George? Why am I going to Canterbury? Why am I going to all these other clubs when I've already signed? But also, this is the things they used to do back then. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
It is. It's disappointing. And then on top of that scenario of signing, we go back to training, and obviously it gets out. There's whispers, and nothing stays out of the rugby league world with the media. There's always someone going to talk to them and give them the heads up. So anyway, more or less, there was all these speculations I was going, and it's getting pretty strong to what the fact was. And so Alan calls me in front of the club in the old meetings that we used to have when they announced the teams, and he dead set roasters me in front of the whole squad, saying, "Oh, this bloke thinks he's better than Alan Langer. He's leaving you. He's your captain, this and that."
Oh my God!
That bloke was in the room when I agreed to go. So obviously that's one of the things where you get bitter at, with people that have got positions that they have in the game, and no one ever tells that side of the story. You know what I mean? Like, and like at this stage now, you can't, like, there's nothing that can happen to me now because I'm telling the truth. That's exactly the fact that happened. So it was pretty embarrassing to go back to your teammates and and then that may happen. But the ones that were close to me, I lived with a couple of blokes at the time. I'd already told them, and I just said, "Look, the situation, blah blah blah." And so it was just disappointing and embarrassing. And then the last 6 weeks of the competition, they stood me down, which was okay. Well, I sort of agree with it and see where it's coming from. But at the end of the day was, here I was getting told that there's no money for me. I'm not going to earn the money that I could deserve to go somewhere else. The club's struggling financially.
Yep.
And, and I see the point from the club's perspective. We'll give someone else an opportunity. But why are you giving a bloke an opportunity if the club's going to fold? Wouldn't you rather just keep the most experienced bloke that your captain and keep him playing? So it sort of robbed me of getting close to the 100 games. I think I got 92 with South. So obviously, when you look back at them sort of stats and things you'd like, the milestones you get, unfortunately, I didn't get that chance. And I copped a bit from the South fans and that. So, which it hurts because I really did care about the club. And I was very respectful in the way that I was honoured that they gave me the opportunities they did to give me a start in my rugby league journey. So, but that was the truth, and that's exactly how it played out. So, very disappointing. Yeah.
That's why I love doing these podcasts for two reasons. One, we get to hear the stories that never made it to light of day back in the days. But two, you get a chance to kind of set the record straight, on certain things and reasons why. I love asking those questions of why players changed clubs or, because there's usually a story involved at some point. It might be good or a bad story, but that's so interesting to know what really went on behind closed doors.
Well, if we had a longer day, we'd probably get through some bad stories. But that's the truth for that one. And like going to Manly, it was great because for me it was another journey. Even though like I went there knowing I was told in that conversation that Cliffy, who I'd never ever played with and I didn't really know, I only played against, and he was a genius, was going to retire. The bloke played another 8 years. He played another 8 years after that. So. Like, I don't know where Bozo was saying he's going to retire. So I was thinking that I was going to go and play in the halves with twos. And, and Cliffy was going to retire, not knowing the bloke. But obviously he didn't need to retire because he was still playing unbelievable football at that age, And so that sort of made it hard going to Manly because it was like a triangle. And obviously the things that he'd done for that club, the fans are very loyal and they are different to most fans in the way that they don't, they take their own and they protect them,
Okay. Did you feel like you fit in at Manly, like with that try? Because you had Jimmy Sedaris as well playing hooker.
Yeah.
So you're trying to get four guys into three spots.
Yeah. Well, no, we had a lot of mates there that had been at South. Spud was there, Mark Carroll, Terry was there, Terry Hill, and Jimmy, So I sort of had mates there, and all the guys I met there were dead set champions, like great human beings. And good mates. They're good people, Nick Kosef. I mean, Beaver back then, we were very close back in the day. We all play golf and we'd all hang out and we're partners and that. And, good guys. Nice. And it was a great part of the world to live over there. So everything was good. It's just that obviously the pressure that was put on for me to sort of be at the same standard as Cliffy and Tubes was always a big ask.
I bet it was. Did you find it intimidating in a way? Because you've got those two. But almost every position in the side, especially like the forward pack, from my memory, was like Nick Kosef, Daniel Gartner, like was David Gillespie there?
Dave Gillespie,
and like you said, Spud Carroll, Steve Menzies, like you've got pretty much a rep player in every position. Like it's crazy, like the strength that Manly had when you went there.
Yeah, obviously, and like I'd never experienced winning 14 games in a row. We did that. No. But that was the ARL year, so obviously we played in sort of like a half a comp sort of thing, but we did do well. And, we got all the way up to the grand final, and like you said, that the whole team across the board. I mean, Craig Guinness, another Kiwi, he was probably one of the best defensive backs I've ever played with, and he was good postie, and but there was so many good players in that team, and like you said, every one of them was a rep player, and I think we all did play some form of rep along the way, whether it be city or country or New South Wales or Australia.
How awesome was it for you to make that city side? Because you played, 3 games for City? I think you won a couple of them.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Yeah, awesome. It was real good, I got the opportunity to play with the players that sort of you look at and you always talk about in the tip sheets when your coaches back in the day would always have a tip sheet on the opposition you're going to come up against, and these blokes always mentioned. So to be in their company and play was it was good. I felt comfortable and they made me feel comfortable, so I enjoyed it.
Nice.
Obviously, didn't get the opportunities that I probably and when I did get the opportunity, I probably didn't take them as much as I could have. But that's just football, and that's the way it goes sometimes. And obviously, I ran into a real good player in Andrew Johns at that time. I obviously knew that I was going to play, second fiddle to him.
Yeah, it's pretty tough being behind an immortal, eh? Don't lie, he's an
Yeah,
amazing player. Yeah.
definitely so.
So, you mentioned you guys won the Tooheys Challenge with the Rabbitohs, and you were playing with mate Terry Hermanson. Lots of like having Herbie turn up to training as a Kiwi, sort of looking for an opportunity, and then you guys went and won the Tooheys Challenge. Like, can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, well, Terry was a great player. Terry had legs like tree stumps. And just a story on Terry before we go to his challenge. So Terry was at South, and we won like that to his challenge and that stuff. And then Terry, obviously, with his form, he was outstanding, one of the leading props in the comp back in the early 90s. And then he went to the Roosters. And I remember one time we were struggling times at South, and me being the big captain, and I Roosters had scored a couple of tries, and I said, "That's it. I'm going to kick off again, and I'm going to go show you make a tackle." I remember going for a tackle, trying to tackle him, and he knocked me straight out. He went into one of them tree stumps. So that was the Terry Hermanson with me. But Terry's a great guy, and we had some great footy together, and yeah, he played really, really well. And like I said, for him to get clubs chasing him on his form, he deserved it. So yeah,
Yeah.
we had some real good times with Terry.
Mate, his journey to get to first grade's unbelievable. When I had him on the podcast here, like he just went to Australia without a club. He was just literally going around. He was training with North Sydney at one point and sort of just showed up with you guys and like he didn't even have a club, but he just worked his ass off and eventually got an opportunity. It was an unbelievable story.
Yeah,
And
well,
he turned
they're
out
the
to,
best stories, aren't they? They're the best stories, really, aren't they? When
yeah,
you got someone that just backs themselves, and at the end of the day, like they've got nothing, so they've got to try and make something, and that's the special part about it, I think. And I couldn't be happier for Terry to have the career he have, and he went all the way and represented his country. So how
yeah,
mad's
man.
that?
Mate, he scored a try in the Anzac Test win in 1998 against Kangaroos. How good is that? Bumps off Darren
Yeah.
Lockyer and goes over for a try. Good.
So unfortunately, I didn't see him score too many tries, but I seen him make some good runs and some good tackles. But yeah, so good on him.
That's so good. Right. So that two is challenge. Like you said, that was like pretty much the only thing Souths had won in forever. Before the grand final in 2014. How did you guys take on the Broncos, beating them by a point? Like that's a pretty incredible achievement after they just won back-to-back premierships.
Yeah, it was just one of them weird games, but we nearly got run over the top of. But I don't know. I don't know whether they just took us lightly and we were just enthusiastic on the night, and
Yeah.
we'd won 3 games to get there. I'm pretty sure, and we just had a belief that we'll just go throw the ball around and play with that no fear attack and stuff like that. And we all knew it. And we were all sort of talking about it before the game. They had like 11 internationals or something, and the other guys were state of origin players. We're thinking, we're up against it, but you know what? Let's just go out. And we're all nobodies and just carefree, and just went out there and just had a crack. And things fell in our way. They made some mistakes and gave us little bit more ball than they probably would like to, and things stuck for us. And that was one of the nights for me that my whole football career turned overnight. I went from a certain value of money and tripled it. So it was a good thing, and that just goes to show, like. Even with the Terry thing, if you just take opportunity, if you do take it, then things can present itself for you.
Absolutely. And you said you became captain of the Rabbitohs. Like, just how important was that for you, and how special was it to be captain of a club that gave you your opportunity to play first grade?
Well, obviously, it's an honour. And as you get older, a bit wiser, you look back, and I probably wasn't ready for it, but it was under a situation where we'd signed Dean Skiffaletti, who was going to the Cowboys, and Dean was one of the talented players I've ever played with, even though it was for a year. He was great, but he ended up doing his shoulder, and his leadership was unreal. But he done his shoulder, was out. So then I was, given the opportunity, and obviously I jumped straight at it, and it was like a roller coaster because I got myself in a bit of trouble off and on the field with the climbing the mountain, and but it was like I said. I look back now and I just said I probably should have taken it a bit more serious in the way of my leadership. I was very strong and competitive, being a competitor, but maybe just saying the right things at the right time and stuff like that. Wish I could have done that better, but obviously being a South Sydney captain for 3 years was a great honour.
Absolutely. So then 1995 rolled around, like you say, and the Super League War broke out. So how did that affect you in any way at all? Like, what was your journey through the Super League War? Because it was chaotic, like for a lot of players and clubs, obviously, with two factions fighting over players and clubs. Like, how did that all go down for you?
Well, as a player, it was just a crazy time. all the figures that were going around and the players that were getting offered contracts. And obviously, I've always been taught loyalty and honesty and all that sort of stuff is probably a key fact. My upbringing, even though, it wasn't the best in other areas, but I always just try to be loyal. And that, I suppose that's why I probably made a few poor decisions when you look back at it. I just probably didn't, I just took people on their words, like, stay loyal and we'll look after you, this and that. But, I look back and I wouldn't change a lot of things. I'd change a lot of things with my decisions, but I'd also, I'm very grateful for the opportunities I did get. So obviously in that Super League year, I stayed loyal with South, even though I had 2 or 3 other clubs I could have went to. But yeah, so I don't regret it because at the end of the day, they come back to us and it was the right decision.
Nice. So let's fast forward a little bit. You said you went on to Manly. And what was like you said, was the culture great under Bob Fulton, like a different coach, you've got, a completely different group of players. How did you find that when you first arrived, under Bob Fulton?
Well, no disrespect to the coaches I've had in the top grade, but obviously when I went in there, I was a bit nervous with Bozo. Bozo was, the kind of the coach where, he obviously knows what he's talking about. Obviously being an Australian coach and the wonderful player he was, and he was immortal. But he had these tactics of his own as a human, which, probably clashed with me because I speak my mind and he probably is not used to that when he's got all these nice little gentlemen that can play, that don't argue back or don't talk back. So it was a bit of a butt head situation. Well, I just always been the same person where there's nothing leaving on the table. There's no point me going home and stewing about it if I had the chance to talk about it. And so I think over a period of time it worked, but in some areas it didn't, obviously, because I didn't finish my contract out there. But I really did enjoy my time there with the club, the way it was run and the people involved. But at the end of the day, it just wore down. I mean, if you really think about it, and this is the story that I go with everyone, because this is how I felt with the halfback. So we talked earlier on the podcast about Mark Carroll, Dave Gillespie, Jim Sedaris, Nick Kosef, Steve Menzies, Daniel Gardner. Any halfback that ever played the game would wish that on a wish list, have that a forward pack. Brilliant, tough.
I was going to ask you that.
Score tries, can tackle hard, all them things, all the attributes in the game of rugby league, they all A+. So
A+.
Bud retires. Dave Gillespie retires. We sign a bloke from, and this is no disrespect to the players, we sign a bloke from Canberra playing reserve grade. We sign a bloke from Newcastle comp to replace 2 Australian front rowers. But I seem to be getting a little bit of the smack on the head because we weren't winning games at the end of '98 and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, look, it is what it is. I probably didn't play as good as I probably could have without making excuses. But at the end of the day, you take players out like that. I mean, look at South Sydney we talked about earlier. You take Latrell, you take all the big money players out of the team, they don't win. You do that to the Roosters with Manu, Hargraves, you take their best players out. The other players really have to step up on a week-to-week basis to win games. They might win 1 or 2, but consistently they won't win as many as they probably could have with their players in the team. So obviously Manly was going through that change of paying big money to people to get through the Super League year, and obviously they had so much talent players that they brought through that every club would want any one of them forwards. But the boys were coming to the end of their careers, and some men who had a wonderful career, and Spud. So, and they then blokes are just not replaceable. You've got to try to wait for people to come through, and hopefully, you get one. But you'd already had that in the back row. So they didn't have any front rowers coming through at that stage to fill their void. And then I think Owen Cunningham was a great player in his own right. He come back from the Cowboys and to help us out. So, I just think that was a big thing for us because our game changed in the way all of a sudden Beaver's doing hit-ups. And Beaver was never doing hit-ups before.
He's supposed to be scoring tries.
No. I mean, Nick Kosef was playing, 3 different positions. Like he'd fill in as a half, he'd fill in as a front rower, fill in as a lock, and even Daniel Gardner, who, was a tremendous player with his footwork. They all had to end up becoming power players rather than what they could do off the back of the 2 front rowers they had in front of them. And when we had Neil Tini, who also did a marvellous job, but that was when we had them 3, Mark Carroll, Dave Gillespie, and Neil Tini rotating. It's a pretty good wish list.
Not bad. Didn't you have Billy Weeper as well?
Oh, Billy was a young bloke that played tremendous through the lower grades.
Yeah,
But obviously, I think he got injured, but he did play 1 or 2 games, maybe a few more in that
yeah, another
97
Kiwi
season.
boy.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
Billy was talented. He could kick goals and everything. And
yeah.
yeah, they were good guys. I quite often had a few beers with all the boys. There was a lot of Kiwis in the lower grades, and they'd all go back and have a few beers and get the guitar out and sing some of them. They're all great guys, all great guys.
Oh mate, we love our beers over here. Us
Yeah.
Kiwi boys. Absolutely. So let's talk about some. It's good and bad. 1997, you finished minor Premier years. You know, you and Newcastle were first and second, split by 1 win on the ladder. What are your feelings for you personally, and as a club, going into your first ever final series? But as for Manly, going in as minor Premier years into the ARL finals.
Obviously, looking back, and I watched it a couple of times. Like the game, we played in 2 weeks before to get in the grand final, and they were just, they were a good team, but for some reason we sort of had the wood on them, and
Yeah,
they were just ultra. Across the board, they were a great team, Newcastle. Obviously, the brothers were steering them around the park, Andrew and Matty. But
yeah,
we had a bit of a wood on them. We gave them a bit of a touch up. I think it was 20 points or something like that. We beat them.
yeah. It's like
I just think,
27-12 or something,
yeah. So when we
something
when we
like that.
when we when we, when we end up going into that game, it was a big week, and obviously the boys had experienced it a couple of times in 95, 96.
Yes.
So it was all new to me. Obviously, I was
Yeah.
excited, and I was even extra excited because not because I knocked my mate Woodsy out of getting in the grand final, but I kicked the field goal to get us in. So that was a little bit
Yeah.
of a payback for the Roosters for not picking the ball boy up and giving him a start. But so we ended up kicking the field goal and we got in the grand final, and it was a big week, and it was a massive experience to be involved in it, even running
Yeah.
out in front of so many people, and it was a big day. But again, like another thing that happened in that game, I broke my ankle, and no one's obviously because I wasn't a big name in the game. It doesn't seem to matter, but if that would have been Andrew Johns broke his ankle, it'd be all over the papers and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I just remember the incident. I remember making sort of like a heartbreak, and then someone tackling, and their weight went on my ankle, and I just thought this is no good. Got carried off. It looks quite silly because you get carried off, and then 10 minutes later run back on the field. But I'll go back in the sheds, and anyway, our runner was there standing with the radio, and all I could hear was Bozo going, "Put that effing C back on, get him on there," blah blah blah. Anyway,
Oh my God.
so I'm thinking, what's going on? So next minute, Nathan Gibbs goes at Fieldsy. I don't know what you've done, but you've done something. But I can give you a needle or a couple of needles, and then you won't feel it. But tomorrow it's going to be, very sore, and we'll have to go from there. So anyway, I ended up going back on. I honestly could not feel my leg. I was playing on adrenaline. I don't think I did too much, but it was a great game to be involved in. I mean, obviously, I would love the result to be different, but to be part of that iconic game now, everyone looks back at one of the good ones. It was great, but we just ran out of puff, and they just come over the top, and we really should have put that one to bed. But I don't know whether it was just something with Manly, because I mean they got to a lot of grand finals and they just seemed to fall. They won that one against St George, but the Canterbury one, like they just on that one day, such a great team, and it happens in sport, doesn't it? Sometimes
It does.
the team on the paper doesn't get the result. So I definitely, I look back at it and like it's a sad thing because winning a grand final can change your life, but to be part of it was pretty nice.
Mate, it is one of the most iconic grand finals in history because not just the game itself, but because it was the Super League split. It couldn't have been a better scripted game, especially how Newcastle were so heavily involved in signing with ARL, which kind of broke Super League's back in the end. Getting the Johns brothers signed to Super League because the ARL because they're such a big deal. And then for them to win that grand final, it's a shame you guys lost, obviously, but it came down to like the last few seconds when Darren Albert gets that try and they were gone. Like I can't believe they came back and won that match. It was pretty unbelievable to watch.
Yeah, I remember it was being 16-all, and we went up the other end, and because I'd kicked the field goal in the prior game, and Shannon Nevin was our main would have been our main kicker. He's our goal kicker, and he's a very good goal kicker. And he would have been our first choice for the field goal. But I remember getting up there and putting myself in a position to go for it, and then the master sort of called an override, seen something on the other side. We ended up losing the ball, and then they come up down the end of the field. Then I went for the charge down when they were going for it, and then they got 6 again. and then the rest is history. But look, at the end of the day, it was a great thing for Newcastle, a town. I think the one thing about rugby league and with the Super League, where sometimes a change are good. We've had a lot of change in our game that probably is bad. But back then, obviously, someone's seen the clubs, and the game itself to go bigger and to a broader span. But the game's always been a working class person's game. Rugby league, people work all week and go and spend their money to go watch to support their team. So that's what the game's been built on, and I think that's why I suppose when Newcastle win, it's a bit of a payback for all that loyalty that these people that are supporters that don't have the opportunity to be a player or an official or something like that. So I think it's a good thing. I think it was a good thing. It was a sad thing for me and for my mates that we played in the teammates. But at the end of the day, a lot of people remind me, they were ones that I played with, they say, well, I've got a ring. So, you know what I mean? But it's just what happens. I suppose it's just the way life is and the journey, God only knows why things happen, they do, but they were just too good for us on the day, and all you can do is applaud them.
Yeah, mate. It was it is one of the great grand finals, no matter what. And I think it's real special for me to talk to you about it because you're the first person I've chatted to that actually played in that grand final. So it's real special, even though you didn't get the win, but you were a part of kind of history, for the ARL to be so successful, to have such a massive grand final, for it to go down the way it did. It kind of was the catalyst for the two competitions coming back together because Super League couldn't sustain what they'd built, and then to see the NRL come back together, I think, that was fantastic for the game.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you 100%. It was a good thing for the NRL, ARL at the time, and the eastern side of Australia is massively all rugby league, and it's a working class game. At the end of the day, that's where it belonged to the people,
Yeah, man. So if I can rewind a little bit, when the ARL started in '95, I noticed because I was doing my research for this, and I was going to ask you about the '95 season where South struggled big time. Do you think because they'd added 4 new teams in one season, there was a massive player vacuum and the quality of the rugby league, and because 4 or 5 clubs barely won any games, at the bottom of the ladder. Cowboys won 2. I think you guys won 5 or 6 maybe, and yeah, a lot of struggling clubs, which also led to clubs being axed from the competition, which I was going to ask you about shortly, Balmain, that type of thing. So, what's your take on, and also currently with new clubs coming into the comp?
Well, back in '95, if you remember, again, we talked about Dean Skiffeletti. He was going to the Cowboys. We had Brett Goldspink. He was going to Western Reds. But we had quite a few boys in that '94 team, and we were quite successful. We probably should have. We put ourselves to make the 8. We won I'm pretty sure it was minimum 7 Friday nights in a row, and it was good for the game. We had blokes making their debut, Vitali, Tricky Trindle. We had blokes that were just playing razzle dazzle, and people wanted to watch that on TV. We put ourselves in a position to make the 8, and obviously we fell short. And again, I'll go back to, I think it was experience, because we had carefree footy, but when it come to them, we got to arm wrestle. We didn't match it because we just had them mistakes in our game. But we just kept playing footy, and during the season we could make mistakes and then end up winning games because we just kept going. But when you play the best teams, you've got to win that arm wrestle, win that field position, and do the things to make you, the little things to get you over the line. But losing certain players in that '94 squad, we did get new guys in '95, and to their right, they were good footballers, but we just didn't. Sometimes with teams, when you get influx of players, it takes a while to get used to each other. And all of a sudden, coaches don't have a lot of time, so they're dropping blokes in and out of squads. So therefore, players, they might have a bad game, but they're better than what they played. Don't get that opportunity another week or something or two to get combinations. And the season goes that quick these days. Even though it's a long season, if a bloke's out for injured for 4 weeks, it takes him another 4 to get back into the groove. And by that time, he mightn't get his spot back. So I just think that with me being involved at South, when we did lose, we ended up picking up Craig Salvatore, who was a marvellous footballer and a great career, playing for Australia. And he was a Rooster bloke too. But he was coming there at the end, which was a great thing for the younger blokes to learn of someone like Salvo. But in saying that too, we just didn't have the backup. We lost other players, and we had to put Jason Bell, who's a great 5'8" and probably one of the best, alongside Cliffy I ever played with, tough as. He went into hooker, and we lost players, and we didn't there wasn't players around at that time that we had the money to buy.
Okay, so would you say that's sort of happening in the game now? Because just like some clubs just struggle. Like there's a lack of, I think, halves, like superstar halves coming through. Like the game, either it's changed or because if I look at your generation, off the top of my head, I could say yourself, like your Stacey Jones, Greg Alexander, Andrew Johns. Like it was like the
No,
Alan Langer, Kevin Walters, Laurie Daly, Ricky
Ricky
Stewart. The
Stewart.
list goes on, right? Like
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Cliffy Lyons, Jeff Tuvey. Like there's stacks of
yeah.
good players.
Gary Freeman.
Gary Freeman, just another. Like we're talking like international class. Like where are those players now? Like in current day, I don't know. There's not many.
This is my honest opinion with that whole situation. Okay, so obviously Benji had a massive impact in the game in 2005. Okay, and then all of a sudden we got an influx of the Polynesians playing. Obviously, and that's proof because Tonga beat Australia. So everyone wanted to be like Benji, and then Tamalo signs a big 10-year deal and has a great couple of seasons, and then all of a sudden, his guys have come from nothing. I mean, obviously Benji had a big rap as a kid and all that stuff. I don't know James's background, but we seem to get a lot of big kids, and all the recruitment obviously go for the big kid. Whoever's the biggest, we've got to take. Yep. I mean, they're athletes now. They are definitely athletes, and there's a lot more Polynesians playing the game, and they're doing a great job. But as long as I've been involved in the game, there's always been that thinker that's always in that spine. You know what I mean? That's been brought up with the game and developed that Greg Alexander, Ricky Stewart, Alan Langer, Andrew Johns, that base player, and a lot of champion Indigenous players have all been in the halves. You know what I mean? Like John Thurston, Darryl, there's heaps of them.
Preston Campbell,
so many of them, and they would just play backyard footy, and that's what puts bums on seats, And honestly, that's one thing I always talk about. I was talking about to my boys and to everyone when I have a beer or just in a conversation about rugby league that's the one thing that, with all my mistakes and things like that, I go back and look at the blokes I had to play week in, week out against. It was not like nothing was ever easy because they were dead set champions in their positions, and that's the problem now. Like a halfback will go out there and get picked, and he might be a young bloke. They're not giving him enough time to make the mistakes. But as soon as they make a mistake these days, geez, they put their head down, they kick it out on the floor, and they put down. You don't see them for the second half. And I used to make 6 or 7 mistakes, but I do 2 good things that people remember, or that made me get the confidence to back up next week. They just give in too easy, and I think that's the pressure that they've got them on these days because they're all like robots. You do this, you got to do that. What you do is you go where the space is, and you play football. You play eyes up. They're not getting taught that way, and it's just my opinion. I quite often have some rants on Facebook, but you know what? It's just my opinion, and whether it's right or wrong, it's where I feel. Because rugby league's the only game I know. But I honestly think that it's too structured. And with all these, we're making rule changes every week. There's a new one coming out every week. Just leave the game alone. It's the game that everybody loved. It was the greatest game of all before. Now they're changing it. They're changing it because people that think that they know better, they don't know nothing. These people are making these decisions. They've got no idea. Yeah, I want people to be protected. I want people to head knocks. But people on a working site every day, they're drilling holes or on a jackhammer all day. You know what I mean? Look, these people are working hard for their money. These blokes are going there playing the game they love, getting big money. Just let them play football. They chose that sport.
That's right.
That sport. Go and play it. But it's just, I know Super League, they're making a rule where they can't go a certain distance. I'm happy with that because I'm sick of every time that there's a penalty where one person decides it's a high shot where everyone is watching it, even though they might have 4 cans in deep, they still see it as it is. It's just a contact that goes wrong, like no one purposely goes out there to try and take someone's head off these days. The game's changed so much,
man.
They just got to let them play, They're just making too many rule changes. And I honestly believe they keep going, there won't be a game. I mean, through the juniors now, they're all going to play Oztag. It's all league tag. Like, I don't want to see kids get hurt, but we all did it.
Yeah.
For how many years we were all doing it? It's just not the game anymore. And unfortunately, that's the sad part. That's just my opinion. That's a sad part, and I coach junior teams and I coach like the reserve grade just for my club. And that's the thing. You try and teach them, and they just haven't got. They haven't got what we had the luxury of playing 2 or 3 games on a weekend. You know, the upbringing of being a little bit tougher in that regard. You know, like when I coach a junior team, and they're all great kids, and they've got so much talent, but they'll turn up to training and say, "Oh, coach, can't train tonight. I've got school footy tomorrow." You would have said that to me back in my hand. My teammates would want to fight me. You know what I mean? You can't. You've got to just get on with the job. If you want to play that sport, play it at your best ability and just toughen up a bit. There's just too many princesses these days, mate, you know?
Yeah, and that's it.
I know the world's changed. I know that things have changed that you can't get away with that we used to in back day. And you take the good with the bad. The bad stuff you don't put up with. But you've got to have some parts of that tradition that we used to have when we had in the game. Otherwise, it's not the greatest game of all. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And people will still go there and buy the hot dog and say I'm wrong, but they've never been there. And you know what? Unless you walk someone's shoes with everything in their life decision, they're like, you don't know. It's just your opinion. Just like when the referees and the bloke in the bunker gets it wrong every week. Unfortunately, it's just a human being making an error. He's making an error every week.
Yeah.
So consistently, you've got to work it out whether it's worth having. You know what I mean? Because go back to the old rules and what he sees, they go, you know. But they've got that much help these days with cameras and they still get it wrong. To me, I think it's embarrassing. Yeah.
It is. Did you see James Graham having a good rant about whether they should get rid of the kickoffs? It's like he's like, "Are you for real? That's like the best part of the game, and why we go to the game to see guys getting belted off the kickoff."
Well, this is the thing. This is the whole thing. You know, like we're taking the gladiator way out of the football. You know, we're taking that side out of it, and this is where it's going to. Like you're getting average 60 points a game. I mean, what about back in the 80s when it was 4-2?
Yeah, man.
5-4.
Beltathon.
You know what I mean? Like that was gladiators. They're gladiators. They were dead set, and they were getting paid nothing to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they did it for the love.
But so that's what people love. And you talk to always, you know, when I run into people that I know that were old footballer and that, you talk to them and what was it like? But it was crazy, 5-meter rules, all that sort of stuff. These days, it's just, you know, it's just go up for a bomb. You know what I mean? It's kick to the corners.
The chip and chase, Phil Blake over the top.
If people say to me the game's getting better, then you know what, they've got to get some DVDs back out, watch some real games, or watch the old games, because I still argue, and it's not even just my era, it's the eras before. You know what I mean? And even a little bit after my era, there was some quality football played, and I just don't see that quality anymore. And the more teams you get, you're not going to get any more quality, because you're losing them ones that have been there and done it.
You're diluting the talent pool because there's too many teams.
So I honestly believe, take all the rules out, or that they keep introducing. There's still going to be them teams like that were struggling back in the 90s. We're going back to that again. So you're going to have them teams down the bottom. I mean, teams have, every team goes through it, and South's going through it now with injuries. So you've got a 30-man squad. If you've got 8 or 9 backs injured, you know, they're recruiting from anywhere, getting all exemptions and everything. So I'm not making excuses for South, but that happens. And it's happened to many clubs over years. But other clubs, they'll win 1, lose 3, win 1, lose 3. You know what I mean? That's not consistently, because there's just not enough players to play that level.
That's right. I think so. So before we move on to you leaving Manly, I thought it'd be a good time to talk about Terry Hill, who just recently passed away. You got to play alongside him in that 97 grand final. He was a great man, amazing player. I just wondered if you wanted to say a few words about Terry Hill, that, you know, in memory of him.
Yeah, well, I've had a few cries over Terry, because Terry and I were very good mates. I've known him for a long time. And obviously, you know, we were at South. Obviously, he was in first grade and I was in lower grades. But, you know, like we had a lot to do with each other. We knew a lot of mutual friends. Yeah. And then he sort of went to West and East and West, and then to Manly, and then I went to Manly. So, but we spent the whole time I was, even before Manly and while I was at Manly, we spent a lot of time together. Christmas times, we did like things together. Like we'd go for a massage together. We'd hang out, go to the dog track. We'd just do so many things together, and our families got on well. He had a couple little kids. I had a couple little kids. And our wives got on well at the time, and it was good times. And like we did some funny things, and he was just a character. He was dead set a character. But Terry was like such a loyal friend and tough as they come, Terry was. And Terry was that guy, and we all seen his journey with the footy show, how he made people laugh and all that stuff. And Terry also had another side of him where Terry was just a dead set bloke from the Newtown Urco area where he grew up. You can just see he was a scallywag, but he also was pretty clever, and he always was befriending always the main people involved. Like he'd be doing funny things, and obviously he was hot property at the time, a bit like Fletch and Heine that now, and Matty John. And he'd have Yamaha chasing him, and have everyone. He'd have new jet skis, he'd have a boat, he'd have just new hat, he'd be wearing different clothing, and he was always very close to all. Bozo and always the CEOs. He'd be like a lot of the times when I went there and I knew Terry, and I'm thinking to the boys at Manly, we'd be doing fitness and I'd be thinking, is Terry going to come and train with us, or is he staying with Bozo all training session? And everyone would just start laughing and going, yeah, that's it. But Terry was as fit as they come. Don't worry about that. He was a great player, and he was very tough, and very sad Terry's passing, and so it's it's not good when they go when people go before their time, and it happens. It happens. It's life, and it happens. But it's very sad because all the good memories come flooding back. And I spoke to him not long ago actually, because there was a Manly reunion coming up, and a good mate Jim Dimmick's there, and him and Jimmy were very good mates, and I was always like the third wheel when we went out somewhere. But we were going to catch up, and so it's just makes it a little bit harder, even though it's hard enough.
Oh, mate, well said, well said. Rest in peace, Terry, absolute legend. Okay, so moving on, you got to 1998, the Manly Seagulls. You kind of had a bit of a weird season coming off the grand final where you lost like a stack of games, and then you had this amazing run of wins at the end of the season and just scraped into, I think it was like a new 10-team final series. But you went down to Canberra, I think, in that first playoff match.
Canberra,
Yeah, so what happened in 98 for you guys after that massive grand final?
Well, like I said, after 97, we lost a few players, and we got some new ones, and it was just getting that combination of everybody playing. We had still had a quality team, and we're still getting used to a bit of a, we actually played Newcastle, I'm pretty sure, that new stadium, and got absolutely flumped. Like there was 100,000 there, we got pumped, and it was just didn't want to go to training, knew what we were going to cop. And
was that round one?
Yeah, round one, I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah. I actually remember.
It was a double header. There was St George played Parramatta after us, and we played. We actually got pumped. And and I remember like, oh, here we go. We're going to go training. We're going to cop one of Bozo's best ones. But we just didn't hit our groove, and I think a lot of heads were down. And even though everyone still got on, there was no negativity as part of the playing group. But we'd obviously lost some key players, and then we started getting some form, and we started getting some possession and winning certain attributes of the game, and getting on top. And we sort of got right to the end where we had to beat Canberra down there. And we just had a shocker, me included. I remember doing my knee. I had a knee replacement at South, and then my other knee every so often would give me more drama than the one that I got operated on. And I got into a tackle or something and just twisted. I was strapped at that, and I just was trying my hardest, but he was just hammering me, Bozo. Just do something, get us over the line. And I just had nothing. And I can only be honest. I remember it was frustrating, and it was just one of the things. It was freezing down there. No one wanted to be there, but we had to win, and we fell short. So that was the 98 season. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So moving on to 99, you start the season with Manly in about round 4 or 5. Big news drops on the radio. I was listening to it on the radio. I heard Craig Field's getting a season transfer, mid-season transfer off to Balmain Tigers. So curious to know, why were you leaving Manly so soon into the end? I think they recalled Cliffy Lyons because you guys lost like 5 or 6 or 7 in a row or something to start the season, and then
I think
because he had retired, hadn't he? And they called him back.
Yeah, I think Cliffy wasn't there in the 99 season. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, the team had changed a bit again. Peter Sharp had come in, who was a lovely bloke and a good coach, to sort of help with Barbosa. And I think the plan was for him to come down, which I don't know the plan. We weren't told a lot, but they were both working together, which sometimes with two coaches that have got that ability, it doesn't work. I just think with myself, Bozo never got over that Canberra game.
Okay.
And he was that kind of person that on many occasions when when you won in the game or you played really well, you were the do whatever you want that week of training or talk to you anyway, say hello. Yep. But so I would have got a lot of no hellos, but back in them days. But but I just think you hang over, and we just clashed a lot. Like I said, we butted heads. He threw me on 1 or 2 games in a row for like 5 minutes, and I just went, what am I, And he kept telling me, you're not going to drop you. You're a first grader every day of the week. I'm saying, well, you're not using me. You're putting. And I made a comment, and I shouldn't have, and I regret it because his son Scotty was a good mate of mine. I like Scotty. Okay. And I made a comment one day with him about that. And of course, every father's going to take this. And I just said, he's getting more game time than me, and something like that. Anyway, just we butted heads, and it came to it where he said you should leave. I said, well, I'll be talking to Beavers tonight because I don't want to play here anymore around here. And then like I didn't even have to speak to any other club. First club I spoke to. I'd had words with Balmain back in the 90s when I was going to leave. And it sort of was one of the clubs I really would like to play under Wayne Pearce and stuff like that. And Gary Freeman was there as assistant coach. And so it worked out. We ended up playing Manly the next week and we won Tigers. Yeah. So it was a good thing for the ego. But, Balmain was a great club and it was very sad, very similar to South to see him. We didn't know what was going on, but we kept whispering saying that either going to merge with Parramatta or West. So, we ended up playing 17 games there, getting the best and fairest and met some good friends. And I did enjoy my time at Balmain. You had Chase Lowry, another Kiwi that was a great player. It was really good. And then obviously got the starting spot and signed a contract for the West Tigers. And just to be part of the inaugural team was a massive thing.
Absolutely. So what was it like being at Balmain and hearing all the whispers of merging or folding? But then eventually they did come up with the West Tigers. What's it like condensing 2 clubs into one? What was it like from a player perspective?
Well, obviously just coming to the Tigers and my mate Woodsy, I mentioned a lot, but he was there and I used to go always over to watch him play when I wasn't playing and meeting all his teammates and having a drink and all good blokes, champion blokes who are friends, to this day. And so I knew a little bit about Balmain and their culture and that. So when I went over, it was very distracting because obviously we won a couple of games and we're like fringe of a good team, but we had some really good players and we just, I think a lot of players were affected not knowing their future. And there was so much talk about that they were going to go and we didn't know what was going on. We're getting told dribs and drabs and we're getting probably told more from the media people when they ring you up or from other people. And so it took a big effect. But then when the clubs come together, it wasn't so much the players. The players hit the ground running, and the West boys were great guys. And we all footballers know each other when you play first grade consistently for a while. And you know that they're great players, and you know a little bit of the stories about it. I'm sure blokes have heard stories about me off the field. And you get on with blokes, and it wasn't so much us. I think it was more the hierarchy of both boards and stuff like that. Obviously, they were the ones that had the egos, and I think that was the thing where they were getting it wrong. If you ask me, I mean, they got massive money, so anyone could have come in and sort of run the club with the money they got to get them to come together to make it work. And whether they did that right or successful, I mean, obviously it took them to 2005, and Tim Sheen, with a great team he had of some really talented young blokes, ended up winning the grand final. But they got it wrong for a few years. And I just think, with that whole culture and all that sort of thing, we just, me included, we just made some mistakes as individuals. And and that's probably one of the things where, that while it was great to be part of, it just, in my eyes, it was done, could have been done so much better.
Okay. So, well, despite all that, you guys actually had an amazing first 2/3 of the season. And you had an amazing side, really. Like a few gun players, Matt Sears, Jared McCracken, yourself, the McGuinness boys, John Hopewadi, to name a few. Like pretty stacked backline, really. And you guys were like second place till like round 17, and then I think McCracken, he got his career ended by that spear tackle, and then you guys just fell off a cliff. Like, how tough was that?
Yeah, well, obviously there was some quality players. I mean, Jared was great to play with. Like for the first time, I would have played many games against him and had an opinion of him and then played with him. And obviously Hopper and Terry, who'd come from Manly, and Matty Sears is my cousin, so obviously, having a family member there was great. But the McGuinness brothers, geez, they were talented, and Owen Craigie. Right. So it was some plenty of great for Wayne Pearce for the first year, but I think, the proof in the pudding is that obviously if everything was done right and all that stuff on and off the field, Wayne would keep coaching. And when you see a coach leaving, it's obviously not because he's, it's, like you said, we had a good year. So why would you lose a quality coach like that? Obviously, there was things going behind the scene. And I think that sort of rubbed off, a bit like the year before at Balmain, a lot of distraction. And I think that happened to the Tigers too, because, a lot of blokes had only signed for the 1 or 2 years, and then they didn't know what was going on. So, and we'd also changed CEOs. They went from Martin Bullock to Steve Noyce. So there was a lot of things off the field, and obviously they had, like I said, lots of money to get it right. And obviously, it was new to a lot of people, and I just think that part they failed. But obviously they got it right when they won the grand final. So, took them a couple of years more than they should have.
Do you think there's still any animosity from fans from either side, like having a joint venture, or is it still like, because it must be tough being a Balmain life member? You get these old people who've followed Balmain their whole lives, and same for Wests, and you don't really hear anything about the Magpies anymore. It's always Tigers. We're watching the Tigers this week as opposed to West Tigers. Do you think there's any, or is like everyone sort of healed now, and like you got a premiership? That's not a bad thing at all. It's fantastic. What's your take on that?
I think you know what? Yeah, they have got a premiership, and that's great. But if all through this podcast, we talked about it's the working class. West people are West people. Balmain people are Balmain people. South people are South people. Canning people. Everyone in them Sydney clubs, they are die hard. I'm not saying that the out of towns aren't, but the game's been around since 1908. And I can tell you now, once you're a supporter, look at the Roosters, look at all these clubs. Once they're a supporter, they're a supporter. And even when they bag them, they're still a supporter, because there's nothing happier when their team starts to win. They come back out of the closets and they're proud as punch. But, you can see it from both emotions. You get the ones that will not say a bad word about them, because that's the way they are as human beings. But if you asked anyone that was involved in Western Suburbs or supported West, and this is the point I'd like to make on this podcast, is that if we keep talking about bringing these other clubs in, why don't we go back? South come back in. Why can't Balmain come back in? Why can't West come back in? You know what I mean? Why are we kicking out clubs and then starting new ones when you've already got these people who've got foundation? South, look what they done. They got turfed because of financial reasons, okay? And there was, at that time, the way the structure in the world was going, in world of business and all that sort of stuff, there was too many Sydney teams. I understand that. But now it's a different world, right? And why are we looking to go elsewhere? Even if they went to North Sydney Bears or someone like that, like another club, like they're doing hard work in the lower grades, they're ready to go. You know what I mean? Like, why are we looking to go and start some other venture somewhere else? And I'm not saying I know all what they're trying to do, because I don't know the people that run the game now. I don't get invited to anything very often, which is fine. But football's my life, and I'm passionate. I always speak my mind. I just don't understand why we're looking elsewhere when we've got it there. And I'm not saying tear West Tigers apart or St George, Dragons with Illawarra, but I'm just saying, like, you have them there, and then all of a sudden you chill them up, spit them out, and maybe it might be the club's fault, not the NRL's fault. But why not get that back? Because the game's been a long time, and people will come back that you've lost to the game, and people have come back already through the Super League crisis. They'll come back again. You're losing people with all the rules changes and all that stuff. But you will get those people who will come back traditionally with their teams. If they got their teams back, you'd be surprised what it would do for a lot of people. Probably keep a lot of old people more longer alive, because that's their clubs. And every time I speak to anyone that's whether they played the game or supported them clubs, they're very passionate.
Yeah. Oh, mate. North Sydney, Newtown Jets, Western Reds, Adelaide Rams. There's a few off the top of my head. Illawarra Steelers. Imagine if they were separate. And the Dragons, like the Dragons fans don't want to see Illawarra on St. George, Illawarra, like the name of the club, because they're staunch Dragons. And then you got Illawarra just want their club back, like they want to be a presence again. Because everyone had a real soft spot for the Steelers if they weren't their number one club. But everyone kind of liked them.
And how I could leave Newtown now, because I spent time at Newtown, and they were a great club, great people. And you know what? Probably that didn't come to my head because I never had the opportunity to play against them in the NRL or ARL or New South Wales Rugby League. And but Newtown, what a great club. And there again, they've been around for a long time. as a feeder club and doing the hard work like North Sydney Bears. We've got them there. Why not use them, you know? I don't know if it's to keep them in Newtown or move them, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of people, you know, in New South Wales and Queensland, we're quite proud if they had these clubs come back into the comp rather than go somewhere else. And I know we try and boost the international game with Fiji and Papua New Guinea and all that, but why are we losing what we've got, you know, to strengthen somewhere else? It's like as a coach. If I coach, I don't weaken a position to strengthen another. You know what I mean? You just got to. Yeah. That's just my opinion again, but I just think, you know, like traditional is the way to go for me, rugby league, because it's working class game, and it's just all these other things that we're trying to do is just killing it. Is killing the game. Man.
That's why I do this podcast back in the day, because it's the great eras of rugby league.
I think some of these people that make these decisions have got to stop trying to be too smart for their own good and watch a few of the old games and watch the old refereeing and watch all the old things that used to go on, because that's what built the character of the game. You know, the things that they're doing now, okay, women in league, it is what it is. And I have no problem with the women. They're playing some great footy. And there's some talented girls out there, which is great for the game. And that's the way it is. But we're losing track of what we're trying to do to our game. We keep making different rules. Concentrate on NRL. That's the men's game at the start. With the women's league, they concentrate on that, the people that do that. But then all of a sudden, when you're going to add teams, hey, you've got them in your backyard. Why are you going elsewhere?
Yeah, 100%. Right, so 2001, things kind of went downhill a bit for you after 4 matches. It came, you know, it was announced that you were like sacked from the West Tigers. If you're okay talking about it, you know, explain to us sort of what happened and the journey after rugby league finished for you.
Yeah, obviously, all I want to be is honest and blunt, because I've been accused of a lot of things over my time, and a lot of it probably is my fault. But the West Tigers thing was my fault. I take full responsibility. Back in the day, you know, you'd go out, you meet characters, the city and stuff like that, and end up partying and all that sort of stuff. And I ended up getting caught on the cocaine. And so I did my suspension, and that was a 22-match suspension back then. So I played 4 games, which is 26 rounds, and missed the 22. On the last game, they played Melbourne at Leichhardt. I was in the box with the sponsors and that, and you know, I had a couple of light beers and stuff like that, and just wasn't planning to go. The Mad Monday was the next day. I was all excited about going to start the pre-season and ready to play, and that. Still had a couple of years to go on my contract. It was 2 or 3 years to go. Anyway, back to Leagues Club. They had a function, all that sort of stuff, and then I went into the toilets, and then I was doing in the piss trough, just doing a piss, and this bloke up going, give us some coke, you know, you coke freak, and I just shrugged it off at first. You know, it was about 5:30 in the arvo. Just shrugged it off. Just said, mate, take it easy, buddy, mate. You know, just done me time. Get on with it. If you're in our Leagues Club and you have to go at me, you know, like, I'm definitely not from Melbourne, you know. So I just thought, just piss off, you know. So anyway, about 2 hours later, about 7:30, this same bloke's following me around the club. Give us a line of coke. Again. Anyway, I'm copying it and knowing that I can't do nothing stupid because, you know, like just cop it sweet. Anyway, cut a long story short, the boys were all getting groomed. Some of the boys went home to get ready for their Mad Monday. Some had stayed playing pool, and I was with Hopper, and we were just playing pool, drinking and that. You know, we moved over to where all like the sponsors were and the board of directors and all that stuff at the bar. And quite often a lot of them would stay till late night in the night. So this is 11 o'clock at night or something. Anyway, so I'm having a drink there. Anyway, this bloke's standing with the sponsors and the committee, and he's yelling across the bar at me, right?
Oh, my God.
So I just lost it and said, fuck this. Put my beer down and said, come on, mate, let's go outside. So, what's your problem? Let's go outside and talk it out, mate. You know what I mean? As I started walking away, and it's pretty stupid for me to turn me back on this bloke that's given it to me and tell him to take that side. He's straight away to insinuate we're going out to have a fight. So he's just went to throw a punch and hit me in the back of the head. Well, anyway, I've just turned around to protect myself, and he's come at me again. Well, I've hit him, and he sort of stumbled, and then he's come again. I hit him again, and he dropped straight to the ground. Anyway, well, obviously it was the wrong thing to do, and I regret it. But no one's perfect, and you know, at the end of the day, I just copped enough shit from this bloke, and you know what? At the end of the day, where was the club? Where was the people? You know, these days, you know, it's all about responsible service of alcohol and all that stuff. We had the directors listening to this bloke yelling out at me, calling me a cokehead freak and all this stuff, and not saying nothing. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. There's so many things that we go back and change. Unfortunately, in life, you don't get that. You just got to be better, and you've got to learn from your mistakes. And
Yeah.
you know, and one can say that, you know, sometimes you don't learn from your mistakes straight away. But in that situation this year was my fault. Take full responsibility for it. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to stand your ground, look after yourself sometime. But I don't think violence is the answer. But at the end, no one was giving me support, so it was frustrating.
Yeah.
And then so I didn't lose my contract because of the coke thing, because I'd done my suspension. So I met with the board, and met with the board, and because of the fight, and the guy happened to be involved in the sponsorship, and I just sort of spoke my mind and said, well, if he's one of the sponsors, how do you protect your players? You know, you've got a bloke harassing me 3 or 4 times during that night and yelling in front of you as you don't do nothing. So it was probably, you know what, it is what it is. Did I want to end that way? Of course not. Am I remorseful? Yes, I am. I'm sorry to the bloke and to the club, but it is what it is. Can't go back. Hopefully, you know, the club learned from it. You know, they don't have incidents like that anymore. You know, obviously, you know, in society, they, you know, more security and all that sort of stuff, protect players. I mean, they've gone through other things, club players with girls' situations and stuff like that, which is not my business. But I'm saying, like, there's always, at some stages, always some sort of drama with rugby league, and I think sometimes the media, they love it, and you know, and while they all say they love rugby league, they seem to sort of not always tell the true facts of the story. You know, I mean, even on Ray Hadley's show, Mick Manning was the sponsor. Manning's funeral. He was a good friend of mine. The guy actually worked for Mick Manning's. He got on the radio and explained the whole scenario, what I just explained to you and what I explained to the board, but it wasn't good enough. So you got the bloke's boss telling him what happened, what I just told you, and it wasn't good enough. So at the end of the day, these guys that made that decision, it was a new board that come in from West, and obviously they had an opinion maybe before that, and they made it. But you know what? Have a look at the stats, how well they went after that. So to me, great. as a footballer, not real good. So until they got Scotty Prince, they never had a halfback there. And that's no disrespect to the halfbacks that were there, but they never had anyone of the caliber of myself and Scotty, you know. So
yeah, far out, man. I would imagine, because I've talked to a lot of, you know, players on the podcast now, and you know, they will say, like, there's hotlines now for people to ring. If you see anything out in public, ring the media hotline, and they just like harass players, like filming them, waiting for them just to make a mistake so they can send a video or anything in through the media. Like, the pressure on players is a little unfair, if you ask me, because back in your day, you did sort it out by just like, oi, fuck off, and you just smack them on. No, it's like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like 99 would agree that you were totally in the right, you know, like.
Well, the funny thing is, like, and this is what, to the general public, everyone lives in their own world, their own bubble. As growing up as a rugby league player, alcohol has always been a part of the culture. It has, no matter. I mean, I remember being 17, riding my push bike from Paddington to training, not having a car, and going to training, and then they'd say, right, after training up there and have a couple of beers minimum. You know, I was only on like $125 a week, so you go up there, and the beer was obviously cheaper back then, but if you didn't do it, you had blokes that were going to fight you as your teammates. So that was the culture where you built that. But you know what? I don't see negative in it. You know, you probably handle a little bit better, but people would look at it and go, oh, you don't do it like that. But it built a culture that you were there going to spill blood with each other, and you're going to be there, support each other. You know what I mean? And even in the old days, mate, I've heard so many people tell me stories about individuals, how they've done in violent acts with fights and in pub fights and all that shit. Again, I'm not agreeing with it, but it was going on for a long time. And we've built this culture in your belief, then all of a sudden that's how you think you handle it. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying it's right, but that's what your mind tells you, and that's what your belief is. So they turn it on like a tap. It's like this country. We've got a song singing, when you're in a fight, stand up with your mate. You know what I mean? But all of a sudden, they put them words in there, and they all sing it. Do they understand what they're singing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you get built in this situation. If you go down the street with your mate, and you know your mate say, you don't leave him posted. You stick around him. You know what I mean? And that was my belief back then, and it led to getting in trouble later in life. But it's just the way it is, and then they turn it like a tap. Now you've got a couple of journalists in life making a few mistakes at this point in time. It just goes to show we're all human, mate. We're all human. No one is perfect, and if anyone is, they're kidding themselves because they really lying to themselves. They're lying, you know. But some people, you know, make more mistakes than others, and you can call them a dickhead. But I'm just saying that in general, you get brought up in a culture, and you're brought up in a way of believing things and belief. You back your mate, you stick up for your mate, you never walk away, all that sort of stuff. But on a football field, you never walk away. So, you know, your mindset's a certain way, but then all of a sudden, when it's all politically not correct, they don't want to stick up for you, protect you, or help you. They just want to turn their back and throw you out the back door.
Yeah.
And that's not what it's all about.
Different world now. Yeah, it's not right. Like, if you're walking down the street with your mate and some random comes up and starts hitting your mate, of course you got to stick around and help them. But if something goes wrong, which happens to yourself, which we'll talk about in a second, but of course you got to defend your mate. Like, what, why wouldn't you? And that's called self-defense. Like someone's getting in your grill, it's just what you do. What else can you do? Just take it.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you know what, people can take what they want out of what I say with my situations, but I'm pretty sure everyone in the world that's been around the pub or club, they've seen such things, and there's wrong and there's right. People hitting someone for no reason, totally out of no reason for it.
100%.
But defending yourself, you either do two things: you cop a flogging, or you try and help you protect yourself.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day,
exactly.
That's what self-defense is. Self-defense is when you fear for your safety, you protect yourself. So people can take what they want out of it, but from where I come from, you don't back down and you always look after your mate, and that's what it's about. You don't go and start it. If you start it, then that's a different story. You're at fault.
Yeah.
But you know what? If I could change a lot of things that I've made, I honestly would. I don't know how I'd change it, but if I could for the better, knowing the outcome, and I think if it was going to be for the better outcome, I would change it.
Yeah, fair play, mate. So it was kind of a similar scenario, but from what I've read online, I've done my homework. You stepped in as a peacemaker in a fight, and this led to you like a massive life-changing, moment where you got involved in a scuffle, helping a mate. From what I've read, so I want to hear it from your side of the story. What happened? How that changed your life, for both, bad, obviously, and then the positives at the other end of it. Speak as freely or as not as you like, but what happened?
Well, again, I can tell you my version. So obviously went to the pub early. I was up coaching in Coogin up here in the Northern Rivers. We'd had a function the night before. A few of the boys organised to go and watch the footy in the afternoon at our local pub, the Kingscliff Hotel. We all went down there. Everything was great. A lot of guys left. I lived 200 metres up the road, so I stayed with the 18s coach and a couple other people. We're there watching the game and footy, and a female walked in that used to go out with the captain of my team, and the 18s coach made a remark to him. At that time, I more or less pulled him up and said, mate, just fucking don't worry about her. She's not worth it. You know what I mean? Everything's good. But she obviously barked words back, and then the barman come over and sort of said, what's going on here? So it's all good, mate. Settle it down. So then she went out the back. Well, when she went out the back, mate, this is what upsets me, because when you do something wrong, you deserve to be punished. But this woman went out the back, and she had friends out there that were cowboys or were farmers or what have you. Anyway, she told him that my mate had grabbed her by the throat.
Okay.
So these two guys come in, like looking for who grabbed her by the throat. Well, we all said, dickhead, no one grabbed her by the throat. What's going on about? So they're standing there like, hey, man, listen, just piss off. Nothing happened. So I knew the manager, and I got him to go look on the video and see if anyone grabbed her on the throat and take one of them blokes to watch it. So it didn't happen. So he didn't come back and apologise, just walked out and just snarled at us. And I went, fuck you, you know what I mean? Like, who are you to come and say something? She's out there smirking and laughing and that. And this was like in the afternoon. So we just said, just don't worry about it. Just keep drinking, don't worry about it. About 2 hours later, a mutual mate of mine and that female come in. Anyway, he come in the door to where the sports bar was and started talking to us. Everything was fine. No problem. He went out to have a smoke in the smoking area where they were all sitting, and they heard her version and come in, starting drama again. So him and my 18s coach, I don't want to mention his name, they started having an argument, getting heated, and I just, again, got in the middle of it and said, fucking pull the pull up, you missiles. It didn't happen. You piss off, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I say I'm going. He says going. In a nutshell, he goes to walk out the back. Next time I hear altercation, so I go out the back too. The people that were starting the argument being told to go, and I went and got them takeaways. So when I come back from the bottle shop, just to get them out of there, right, as the manager had asked me to, this is what a security bottle or something. They don't even do that in security, right? I was trying to do the right thing. That's why they put the peacemaker in there. So I go there, go to the car where they're about to drive, intoxicated, give them 2 4-packs or whatever. I paid for the bastards too, right? You know what I mean? So I didn't even exchange the money. By the time I'd give it to them, the cowboy was fighting with the 18s coach on the other side of the vehicle up against the car. So I've given the drinks, run out. Everyone's got out of the car. There was one other cowboy that obviously parked up the street. He'd come running back. These two blokes are like having a go. Next minute, everyone just stop it, which intentionally they probably were to do. They went in there and the two guys, the guy that was coming later that started the argument after she told him, and one of the cowboys stopped the other cowboy, and they just grabbed the 18s coach, right, his hands, and restricted him from throwing a punch. Well, old mate that was fighting him hit him, and he dropped to the ground. So I seen that, and my reaction was I ran in and threw a punch and hit the bloke, and unfortunately he fell back and we didn't hit his head because that's not how he died. He snapped the artery just like the cricketer and bleeding on the brain. And then the family turned the life support off without letting him come down or what have you. They made a decision very quickly. I've had many people in a juice coma and they've lasted whatever they do, and again, only God knows that. But in that situation, you see from my idea and put yourself in my shoes. I've done nothing wrong. I haven't started a fight. I haven't argued with anyone all day. But I've come out and give these people drinks to go because the manager asked me to. And then they've had words, the 18s coach and the other bloke. And then next to all I see is I come back around the car, him being held and get hit. So I run in to shape up to the bloke. He shapes up back to me. And I throw the first one, and unfortunately he hit and he drops. But would I take it back? Of course I would, because there was no reason to have a fight. There's nothing to do. The only reason I sort of have a fight is because I seen a bloke being held get hit. So you tell this to the police, you tell your version, and obviously the loved ones aren't going to buy it. No one's going to buy it. Everyone thinks, you're the bad guy, you're a king, hit all this shit. It's all bullshit, mate. At the end of the day, unless you were there and you've seen it, then you don't know what you're talking about. And the thing is this, when you've been in my shoes and you've walked my shoes, not many people could do it. I did 7.5 years for it because I stuck up for a mate, and the mate I stuck up with got on the stand and said he never threw a punch.
Oh my God!
You know what I mean? What a weak dog. That's as simple as it is. Like he could have just told the truth and then let fate whatever it meant to be. Someone.
What about that girl? She's the main problem. She started it.
Again, a thing. What a human being. What a human being. Dad, you know what? The one thing I'll take from this, and I'm sure people, not everyone likes you, but since I've ever been out of jail since 22, people have been nothing but polite and kind to me. And I don't look for excuses, but you know what? At the end of the day, I've done my time. I get on with life. Treat me how I treat you, and I'll do the same. And the thing is, I know I've got to pay back to the community, and that I try to do it. I've been working with, the PCYC, done some things with some trouble youths. I know I put more time into my family because they're the ones that suffered. At the end of the day, I made a decision on a split decision. Judge me as you may, but put yourself in my shoe. And if you're a female, picture that your son being held. Do you want me to go home and just walk back in and drink schooners? Or do you want me to help your son? There's a different way I probably could have helped. I look back at it. And as I explained to the Manly boys when I spoke to them, I said, football is not forever. You know what I mean? You put on a pinnacle and you're getting paid good money and you've got a responsibility, that's fine. But you're a human being at the end of the day. And everybody's a human being. The media, human being. The people that run the game, human being. Everybody. So no one's perfect. And then when they think they are, you know what? Karma comes around when you get too complacent or you think you're bigger than you are. Because, that's what happens in life. And that's my journey is kid from the city, come from nothing, made it to the top. And you know what? Yes, lost my way along the way sometimes. And would I change it? Yes. Did I have the knowledge to change it? Did I have the people around me to change it? No, I didn't. No sob story. It's just a reality. But things happen for a reason. And where I am today, I've got a beautiful family, and that's my number one. I've got a grandson. I love coaching rugby league. I know I'll never get an opportunity in that level because politically you can't do that because, he's a bad person apparently. But life is what it is, mate. As long as I'm healthy and happy and, and I know the truth and I've been given the opportunity today to say it. I don't like talking about it. There's always going to be haters. But at the end of the day is just walk my shoes and just also understand something too, that put yourself or one of your family members, your son, your brother, anyone, even if it was a female in that situation being held, what would you do? Would you walk away? And maybe you might try and stop it by defaming it. Maybe I could have done it a lot better, and I'm remorseful for what I did. But I paid the price, and I've done my time. 7.5 years away from my loved one, and tragically, a man lost his life, and I'm very remorseful for that to him and to the family. But it wasn't something that I was involved in. And the media write what they want. People walk around. People from 600 meters away in units were witnesses. Like, how could you see anything? There's no cameras. There's no lights in the car park. It was dark as. But this is the
Alright.
world we live in, and the police, they believe what they want to believe, unfortunately. Sometimes they don't care if it's the truth or not. You had a bloke they knew told a lie on the stand, said he never threw a punch, when everybody said he was having a fight. How can you have a fight not throwing a punch? To send his mate to jail, he didn't have the balls. Just tell the truth. It was my fight. I caused it. Whatever happened with him on the other side of the car, I don't know. I wasn't on that side of the car. But obviously something I just heard swearing and carrying on. Then they were fighting. I wasn't there. I wasn't the start of it. So I went there to back him up, and then he's done that, gets on the stand and wasn't Mansfield. He's the one that's got to live with that, mate. I've done my time, and I'm just trying to do the right thing as a human being now.
Mate, I appreciate you opening up. Because I can really hear the injustice of it all in your voice, and like, how did you feel? Hearing like you're in court, and they obviously reduced. They tried to do you for murder, and then they reduced it to manslaughter, and then they found you guilty. Like, what does a man go through when you're like, that's just so unfair? Like, what and then you're carted off to an incarceration facility. Like, what does a man go through in his head when you're put in that situation?
Yeah, look, I look at things now, and I'm grateful for the things I've got, and I'm grateful for the friends I've got. And your friends, and your non-friends. Friends aren't people with agendas. Friends are friends that care, and people are with you all the way through your life, and they don't take advantage of you, or they can't gain from you. What they can gain from you is your trust and your loyalty, and that's why I know the ones. I know the people are my friends. And look, I haven't been innocent all my life either, but I'm just saying that, that's what you learn. And the things I'm grateful for. Did I like jail? I didn't like one bit of it. Did I meet good people in jail? Yes. Good people do go to jail. Bad people go to jail too. But it's not me to judge anyone. It's not me to judge anyone. I know why I was there. I knew what I had to do, and I had to get home to my family. And I'm grateful for my family and those that were loyal to me all the way through. Grateful for it. A lot of people I run into now that never see me, but they call me their friend. Like really, would I like to have seen them, or some support if you couldn't make it, a letter. But I got a lot of that. I got a lot of support. But that shows me that I'm not a bad human being in a lot of ways, right?
100%.
So, and that's the whole thing. And I'm so appreciative that I've been able to get on with my life. Since 2002 when I've come out, everyone's been great. They've given me an opportunity. Mate, there'll be people judging and that stuff, but it's gone past that. I've worked from the day that I've more or less got out. I've got a good job, and I appreciate the company that gave me the start. Good friend got me the job there. And you know what? And like I said, the people that I want to be around, I'm around. And the people I don't want to, I just try to, it's not their fault. It's just my decision. I just feel that me to be the person I want to be and the man I want to be, and, to not just talk shit and just make excuses, to learn from the errors I make. And like I said, there's many things I go over, many times in jail, I go over my head how I could have been a better human being. And that's me just being a person, that's remorseful. But if I didn't do that, that means I don't care, mate. You know what I mean? So I take full responsibility for, them two actions. And, and I wish I could have done it better. And unfortunately I haven't. So we're here today, and I'm grateful for that. And we just move forward, mate, and things in my life are going good. I'm back involved coaching footy, and I have a beautiful family, like I said, and it's just that's all that counts. And I'm working, and that's what you got to do in life. So putting food on the table for my family, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, man. So that day where you got your freedom back, was that like, one of those moments where you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna make every day a bloody winner from here, and just, do you appreciate things just that much more? Like your family, the people that matter, maybe compared to the average person who's not been through an experience like that?
Well, I think I can't say to you that I was perfect when I got out, because it takes a lot of toll on you being in somewhere where you don't want to be, away from everyone. And you know what? For a long time, I was like blaming everyone but myself. And when I took responsibility, it made me reflect on what the most important things are. Is that you're not here for a long time. You've got to make the use of it. And then when I got the opportunity to go talk to Manly, that was more or less a big thing for me. It sort of turned the corner for me. It didn't make me go through the door 100% like I feel today. Again, but it made me to get that, to explain to them that, look, I'm not making excuses. I'm not bullshitting you. I'm saying to you, haven't got a football career forever. Some of the guys I could see, and they're not that kind of person anyway, that hasn't been brought up with the environment I have, or the world that I've lived, so, and seen the things I've seen. So you see things and you act on them sort of things you see because you think it's normal. These people, a lot of them, that Manly room weren't. And the most pleasing was that while I was sweating bullets and I was trying to be as emotional and just be honest as I could, I explained to them I regretted the situation I put myself in. There's so many scenarios it could have been, but it wasn't. But life is what you make of it, and you're going to make mistakes, but you've got to be why you make that mistake or who you're with when you make that mistake, and all these things that all calibrate, your poor judgment or even when you do good things, and you're in a happy place, it's who you're with and it's what makes them emotions for you to be able to be that person. So when I explained to that Manly boys, I could see them, and it was my most pleasing, grateful thing that, Siebes and Jimmy Dimmick and the coaching staff and Tony Mesroff, who I played with, gave me the opportunity to go and talk to them boys. And I just wanted to reach out and just say to them, boys, it's not forever. You're going to have highs and lows. You're human beings at the end of the day, but it's the people in your life. You've got to understand, you've got to take a step back. If you're in drinking and you're in environments like that, what's the agenda? Are you just having a couple of drinks to have a great time, or you're going to go too far, or you're going to keep bending, or you know what I mean? And these people really care about you. So, look at blokes in the park. Their mates are going to parties and stuff like that. Next minute, they're filming them. I'm not going to mention people's names, but they get filmed, and that ruins their lives. These blokes are supposed to be their mates, putting them on show. Now, I'm not saying they're doing the right thing, but I'm saying a good mate says, mate, when they're doing that thing, come on, mate, let's go. It's time to go. You've got a football career. Makes sense? Yeah, so that was the kind of thing I was saying to the boys. It's the environment. Like, I was with a piece of shit that I protected, wanted to insult a woman from the start, and then carried on like a mug. I don't know what he did. And all of a sudden, I've cleaned up the mess and then been put away. And it could have been cleaned up a lot better, the mess, if I handled it better, but I just reacted in the wrong way. And I paid the price. But that's what I try to say to the Manly boys. It's not forever. Make the use of it. Family's number one. Do the right thing by the club, and be the player that everyone wants to play with, and for the right reasons, So, it's like, it was really pleasing. And then obviously I had a couple other clubs, but I don't know I don't know the falls ins and out, but I did hear that the NRL made a stop to it. So it is what it is. But PCYC then picked me up and done a few talks with the young guys and offenders and got so much out of it, mate. So like I said to you, it helped me with my moving forward as a human being after jail, because it did take me a while to get out of, 7.5 years is a while. And out of that headspace, been locked in all day and then nothing but time to think.
Mate, I really appreciate your vulnerability, mate. It takes balls to, talk about it to a complete stranger. I've only known you a short time, so it's pretty massive to share that. And, I really hope that a lot of good can come from, your story and your message and, about putting family first and thinking about the position you're putting yourself in, because we can remove ourselves from situations too if you sense that something might go down, and that's great that you're passing that on to players now, because, it's a pretty crazy generation we live in, eh? And it's pretty unreal. So I really do thank you for being so honest and open. It's pretty amazing actually what you've done, and I just want to thank you for that.
I appreciate it, mate, and like giving the opportunity to say, my side. But like I said, I'm a lot stronger in the head than where I am now today, and my goals and my respect for myself as a person and my respect for others is massive, more than it was, going through that journey that I put myself into. So obviously come a long way. Obviously I can't change the situation, which I could, but what I can do is change the next chapter.
Sure, man. Right, so let's finish with a few fun questions and brighten the mood a little. We'll go, so who do you reckon is going to win the NRL in 2024?
I'm going to say Melbourne.
That's a good shout. I've been sort of saying the last few weeks they're a bit of a dark horse.
Yeah, I think they need to clean up their edges a little bit. But I just think that, Munster, Harry Grant, I just think, and Papenad's out now, so that's going to hurt it. So probably, but they can put McMeaney back there, which I'm sure they will. It just depends where they go with that. But I just think, the way they are and the structure and the coach they got, I think that goes a long way of it. Just even watching, like I know Penrith for the pinnacle and what they've achieved is massive. But at some stage, can they keep going? I think, that thing I talked about earlier, when you start losing a few players, the other players do good in certain games and be hit and miss. And I just think that, I think they're on the up, Melbourne. I think they really are. I think that he's got a knack with what he does with players. So I think Melbourne Roosters are going well, and
Yep.
Penrith. Obviously, they're the three teams. I think.
Oh, nice, nice. Okay, so what's your favorite TV show of all time or TV series? What do you like?
Yeah, well, I was going to say Prisoner, but I'm not going to now because as a kid I used to watch that. But I used to like. I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't really watch TV much, but I got into Home and Away when I was inside because that's a jail show for sure. And but to be honest with you, TV, like I don't really watch much. I like to watch some series and stuff like that, but I'll just say now documentaries now, yeah.
All right,
Any
okay, all
documentary.
right. All right, man. Last question. If you could eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
There's a restaurant called No Names. It's spaghetti bowls with a schnitzel with cheese melted on top with the tomato sauce on it. It's at
Oh,
Erskinesville Bowling Club at the moment. It used to be in City Darlinghurst and a few other pubs around the area, but it's at Urco Bowling Club now. So if you ever get a chance, go and try No Names and have the combination. It's the best food. That's the one
oh,
for
mate,
me.
that sounds so good. All right, man. Thank you so much for coming on the Point of Difference Rugby League podcast and going back in the day with me. Obviously, thank you for talking about, the stuff we just covered, and being so honest and open. It's pretty unreal. So, and just thanks for your time, man. It's been a blast getting to meet you and hearing about back in the day stories. I love it.
Thanks very much. I appreciate you having me, and then I'm happy that I can give my story.
Awesome, man. So also thank you to everyone for listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube. Come join the Point of Difference Rugby League Facebook group. I'm pretty sure Crayfield's on there, and heaps of other legends, and it's really fun. So thanks again, mate, and we'll see you all next time for kickoff.
Full time.